All right, let's bring in Ford O'Connell, chairman of Civic Forum PAC and co-founder of Project Virginia, ready to join us now from D.C. Ford, good morning or good afternoon to you.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan. How you doing, Jehmu?
Hi, Ford.
Good to have you here, Ford. The Occupy Wall Street protesters, a lot of their complaints, we were just saying, very similar to the complaints of the Tea Party folks, solutions somewhat different. What do you make of the Occupy Wall Street movement and the momentum it seems to be gathering across the country?
Well, I don't know how much momentum it's really gathering. I know Jehmu is going to jump down on me on this one, and I'm not sure that it's really that much of an organic movement. A lot of people there don't even know why they're there. There's been a certain amount of interviews on the subject, and I think Newt Gingrich, put it best. Yes, some of the people in the movement are very frustrated with what's going on in this country, and another set of people just really are looking for a movement.
Jehmu?
Well, I have to laugh because, Ford, I've heard you cheerlead the Tea Party and how just incredible their organizing and their impact has been. And this is just, an ongoing conversation that we're seeing from many conservatives where they were so supportive of taking your frustrations to the streets, taking them to politicians, taking them to the power brokers. And now when you see these young folks who are equally as frustrated and now, being joined all over the country to deny that this movement is building, you just have to look at the number of cities that these different Occupy protests have popped up in. Tens of cities now where this is happening. They've survived through the rain, even as it gets colder in New York.
Tens of cities and surviving through the rain with George Soros's money in porta potties. I mean, you can't tell me this is an organized movement here. I mean, an organic movement. It's more like an organized protest against anybody who wants to vote against Obama.
All right, let's move on to a different subject. I want to take a look at where we stand with the Republican presidential race, Ford. The latest figures, Herman Cain, this new poll, public policy poll, I think it was, public policy polling, Herman Cain at 30%. Mitt Romney at 22%, Newt Gingrich rising above Rick Perry at 15%. First of all, Herman Cain, Ford, how viable a candidate is he, or is he simply flavor of the month as the Republicans cast around for a date at 4 a.m. in the bar?
Well, I love Herman Cain to death, and I think he's a viable candidate because he's affable, he's providing concrete solutions like his 999 plan, and he's really resonating with voters. Do I think he's going to win the nomination? Absolutely not, but I give him a lot of credit because he's gone very far, and he's a lot further than many of us thought, and it's frankly because he's affable and he's using straight talk to make his points.
But Ford, let me stick with you on this. Stephen Colbert, very funny man, described this a couple of days ago as the Republicans desperately looking around for anybody. He said it was basically like they are in a bar at 4 a.m. Hey, he's got a pulse and he doesn't have cold sores. I'll take him home. It does resemble that somewhat, doesn't it?
To Stephen Colbert, a fellow Northwestern graduate. Let me say this. What we're seeing is very simple. Let's go to the Wall Street Journal NBC poll. Well, when we looked at it in August, Mitt Romney had 23%. We look at it today, Mitt Romney has 23%. What we're seeing is the rise of the anti-Romney voting bloc. And Cain has surged up 22%, and basically Cain found what Perry lost. So what we're really seeing here is an anti-Romney voter, not so much, hey, well, who's the flavor of the month right now? And I think a lot of Republicans recognize that, Mitt Romney is very likely to win the nomination, but it's not guaranteed. And if the anti-Romney voter sort of, gets around one candidate, Mitt Romney could lose the nomination.
Jehmu, what do you make of Herman Cain's rise? Do you believe he's viable?
I think he is a viable candidate. I think it is a clear sign of how far to the right the Republican primary voters are taking the party. And I think there are folks like Ford in D.C., the professional Republican political operatives, who are probably pulling their hair out thinking that Herman Cain has a shot at the nomination because they know that any sort of general election campaign with Herman Cain at the top of the ticket would be dead in the water. And you see economists coming out against the 999 plan and basically calling it a joke and that it's going nowhere. But clearly he appeals to a certain portion of the Republican electorate, and it's I think a bigger sign that Mitt Romney has not been able to push past, 25, 27%. I think it'll be interesting to see when we have some polls come out after Christie's endorsement of Romney. If he's not able to budge, that I don't think it's a guarantee, as Ford has said, that Romney's going to get the nomination, because
I said he's either going to get the nomination or be the last one out.
The right has wrested control of your primary away from the professional Republican operatives and put it in the lap of Herman Cain voters.
No, I'm not. Well, let me back up. First of all, I love Herman Cain to death. I'm very impressed, and he's actually the only one who's resonating with primary voters. As for his 999 plan, sure, there's some holes in it, but it is a bold solution, and it's better than what we have right now. So, Jehmu, to sort of try to pit me against the Herman Cain voter is crazy, because at the end of the day, the Herman Cain voter right now is the anti-Romney voter. Now, Herman Cain has a chance to sort of, go beyond that and reach into establishment Republicans, which Mitt Romney currently has a firm, stranglehold on. But again, we just don't know. But if I had to say this based on organization and fundraising, the only thing I'm going to sit here and guarantee is that either Mitt Romney's going to win the nomination or he's going to be the last one out.
Jehmu? Mitt Romney, do you think, I mean, it does appear, when you look at the underlying sort of trends, it still does appear that Mitt Romney, although he slipped in that latest poll, will probably emerge as the candidate. Would you agree with that?
I would be quite surprised if he didn't.
Right.
But I think that it's going to be problematic, because there isn't going to be a groundswell of support and excitement from the Republican base to, carry him in to the general and through the general election, and that's going to be problematic for them when they go against President
Isn't that
Obama.
a fair point, that the Republicans are kind of holding their nose and voting for Mitt?
I think that that's the current media narrative. What I do know is that the Republican voters want President Obama out of office. And at the end of the day, they're going to put forward the best candidate who can do that. So, is there some, not excitement with Mitt Romney right now? Sure. And the reason why there's not excitement is because the anti-Romney voting bloc right now just doesn't trust him, because they see him a little bit as a flip-flopper on health care and, abortion rights. So, it's one of these things that Mitt Romney has a chance to win the nomination, and the Chris Christie endorsement, while positive and will help with fundraising, still does not get him beyond the establishment Republican voting bloc. He's going to have to go in there, and if he wants to win the nomination, and convince Tea Parties and social conservatives that he's their guy. That's why what we've really seen right now.
The religion issue came up over the weekend, obviously, with this pastor in Texas calling Mormonism, Mitt Romney's religion, a cult. A real issue, or just a little sidebar?
I think it's a sidebar, and here's why. Back in June, Gallup did a poll that said 22% of Americans, would hesitate to vote for a Mormon for president. Here's what was shocking about that poll. Republicans, it was only 18% of Republicans that had a problem, 19% of independents that had a problem. But guess who had the biggest problem with a Mormon president? Democrats. Yes, the very people that say, oh, religion doesn't matter. Apparently it does to them.
Yeah, Jehmu, do you think religion will play a role if Romney gets the nomination?
I think it will, and I think we see that in Governor Perry's reaction to this, mini scandal, because he hasn't really distanced himself, from this gentleman who made those comments, because he understands that if he was to really distance himself, he would be turning off the voters who are supportive of him. There is an element within the Republican electorate that will play a big role in these primaries and caucuses that is not interested in voting for Mitt Romney because he is a Mormon. And I think that
Jehmu,
we saw the impact in the
let's say this.
2008 campaign, and we're going to continue to see the impact here. I think it's a really sad state of affairs that is still the country we live in where that would have an impact, but it is the reality, and we're seeing it in Governor Perry's actions.
Okay,
Jehmu, before you put this on Governor Perry, I agree with you that he should distance himself from this pastor.
But he hasn't.
Hold on. Prejudice in this country exists whether we like it or not, okay? And that's the bottom line. Now, to what you're saying about Republican primary voters, on the religion issue, according to Gallup, we're finding that Republican primary voters are more open to different religions than independent voters and Democratic primary voters on your own side. So to say that this is a problem with social conservatives on the Republican side, it's not as big a problem. It's the lesser of two evils. Democrats seem to have, particularly minorities, seem to have a bigger problem with a Mormon president than any Republican does.
Jehmu?
Well, I haven't seen this Gallup poll, but again, I think that we have the proof in Mitt Romney's numbers, and we have the proof in Governor Perry's actions.
Yeah, and so let's move on to Rick Perry. dead in the water as a candidate now, do you believe, Jehmu?
Well, I'm a Texan, and Ford is as well. We can't count Governor Perry out. It has been an interesting rise and fall, but he has $17 million to spend, at his leisure. He has really, experienced and smart strategic advisors, and I think anything is possible. If I had to pick a candidate who I wouldn't count out, it would be Governor Perry.
Ford, Rick Perry was lauded before he actually declared and when he actually declared as this candidate who could unite all wings of the Republican Party and was almost a shoo-in. What went wrong?
I think he had some serious messaging gaffes on Social Security and immigration, and I think that's his biggest problem. I mean, and he's a terrible debater. Let's be honest. Of the guys out there, Rick Perry looks like the Washington Generals compared to Mitt Romney, who looks like the Harlem Globetrotters. He's running circles around him. But again, Rick Perry is a very strong campaigner. Right now, he's living on a prayer, and he's between a rock and a hard place in the polls. But if we go back to that sort of WSJ NBC poll, what you will notice is Herman Cain's rise coincides directly to Rick Perry's demise. So he still has a chance, and he does have the 17 million out there, and he can go the distance. The key for Perry is very simply improve your debate performance starting next week in Las Vegas because of what's happening with the primaries. Improve your messaging, beef it up, and if you can win back Herman Cain's support, newfound support, then you can go toe-to-toe with Mitt Romney in his primary season.
You look at, Jehmu, you look at Mitt Romney as the likely candidate. Do you believe that he is a strong enough candidate to pose a serious threat to President Obama? Do you see this race being, if it is Mitt Romney, close, given how bad the economy is, or do you think President Obama will crush Mitt Romney?
I think it actually will be a close election. I think the level of frustration in the country that we're seeing from the Tea Party activists to the Occupy Wall Street protesters is clearly out there. But again, I think that President Obama is going to be able to excite his base and get out his voters in a much more effective way than Mitt Romney is, because in the Republican primary already, he just has not been able to break through. He is not an exciting candidate. And when folks really start to dig into his record of significant flip-flops, it's not a minor issue, as Ford put it, but as those flip-flops continue to come out, and it's bigger than just health care and on women's rights and abortion issues, it's on every single issue. This man has been running for president for basically a decade and has moved with the wind, and that's going to come back to bite him.
Ford, I assume you believe...
once again, my friend, you're overplaying your hand. If Mitt Romney got to the general election, he's going to beat President Obama as of today, and here's why. This election is a referendum on President Obama. We're down to 7 or 8 battleground states, and you better hope that Pennsylvania plan doesn't go through, because if it does, I don't know where David Axelrod's going to get to 270. And, some of the issues that you're claiming are a problem for Mitt Romney, the Republican primary, are not a problem for him in the general election. Everybody out there saying, oh, we love Obamacare, the base does. Well, guess what? You've got Romney Care, watered down, better version that I think even Mitt Romney would change. So I don't even know what you're talking about, because the same enthusiasm for Obama in this case and the holes that Mitt Romney has on the Republican side actually benefit him in the general election.
All right, Ford O'Connell, I got to let you go, chairman of Civic Forum PAC, co-founder of Project Virginia. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you as always, and Jehmu, good chat as always.
It's always a pleasure.
All right, Jehmu, stand by here in the studio with me.